Good afternoon, Louisiana. Welcome to At the Book for Thursday, July the 14th. Happy Bastille Day, guys. Bet you didn't expect me to pull that one out.
Is that the best you can do?
Yeah, it is. I'm sitting in a rather dark hotel room in Jersey, as you can see. Just finished up with the sports betting conference. Lots of great ideas out there in the industry and lots of new things coming your way in the next year on bet.nola.com. But for today, we're going to talk a little football. We're going to talk a little British Open, talk a little baseball, have some fun, guys.
Let's do it. I'm sorry, I was running a little late behind the scenes. We almost had a major incident with a dog and a raccoon. It's a long story.
That
Everybody's
might be
safe.
worth the time, though.
Everyone is safe. It was quite the incident.
That sounds like it might be worth the time, maybe off the air. I'd like to remind you that we're brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. If you have not signed up for Caesars Sportsbook, you can certainly do so now. It's a great time to do it. Special offer for our listeners, $1,500 risk-free bet, your first bet. Anything you want, you can bet it on big odds. I think there is a limit. You can't bet it on worse than minus 300 odds, so you can't just like go cash some huge favorite. But other than that, there's no restrictions on it, so you can turn that money into something huge. And if you lose, you get it back in terms of a bonus bet. So go to NOLA.com/Caesars for that promo. NOLA.com/Caesars. The promo code will be automatically loaded, and you will be good to go. So here we go. First things first, we want to talk a little British Open. The first round is just finishing up over in Scotland at St. Andrews. It is amazing how long they play. I mean, they started at like 12:30 in the morning our time, still going. It's 5 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock at night there. Stays very late there, so they can do it. But it takes like 6 hours to play that course.
Yeah, well, the one thing is, a lot of times they have to walk a really long way to the next tee, and then the way they have to hit shots, it's so wide open. That's the thing about a links course, and I mean, it really is brutal how long it's taken. And there you see, like you saw Tiger having to wait several times earlier. Like everyone's having to wait, so it's a long day for these guys, and it's definitely I think it's gonna have an effect going forward. Maybe on some of the older guys, we'll see.
And the other part about it is because it's a links course, they can't start half the field on 10T like they normally would
Right.
in a tournament because the 10th tee is way out away from the clubhouse. So you can't do that. And so you have to kind of just keep going the entire day. So that makes it a long day. But let's take a look at live odds. I want to get Devin and Spencer's thoughts on this too. As Nick, Uncle Big Nick, our resident golf expert, chimes in, Tiger's group took 6 hours and 9 minutes, and I don't think that was that much slower than some of the others, honestly. But as they're just now finishing up round one, Rory McIlroy, who was the favorite going in, had a good day. He's in second place, and his odds have gone down to plus 330. Cam Young, you see, he is in the lead. He's the fourth one down at 8-1 after an 8-under round today. He got to go out very early, so tomorrow he'll be going out later, and that could affect his score tomorrow. I want to get to Tiger in a minute. I want to get Devin and Spencer's thoughts on that too, and whether Tiger is done or not. But Jim, top of the leaderboard, it's star-studded, man. I mean, you can't ask for a whole lot more. Cam Young is really the only guy who maybe a lot of people didn't expect to be up there at this point.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there really are no values, as is quite the case. Especially as of late, I've noticed the last few weeks in particular, the books have really got themselves more adjusted to the leaderboard and have overvalued favorites the last month or so in a big way. So if you don't bet them before the tournament, unless they have a bad day, bad opening day, and even then, I mean, you look at Spieth, and he's 7 shots back, and he's still 2,500. That is no bargain. So really, unfortunately, unless you want to take a shot on some of these guys that are 3, 4, 5 under, that are less known guys, you're really not going to get any value here, and you kind of missed the boat. And it really is. I mean, Uncle Big Nick says Hovland, but he can't putt. I mean, I'm not betting on Hovland in the major. I mean, he just can't putt.
betting on Hovland pays off from time to time, but it's not the experience you want if you're going to watch every hole because the guy will just drive you crazy.
Yeah, he will.
Like he'll just make some stupid shots and then he'll come up with something brilliant and then it'll be back to something stupid. And he's something you want to bet on if you're just not watching the tournament.
It's kind of like Spieth did today, and really, if there's only one value, and it's not because Spieth was my main guy going in. I said it. I didn't like the fact that I was teeing off in the afternoon, but he missed like 3 short putts. If he can find a way to get those in and stop missing those short little putts, he could be a real factor. Obviously, tomorrow we don't know what the cut line is going to be. I mean, Uncle Big Nick would know better than me, but probably my guess is somewhere around -1, or even.
I think Data Golf had +1 is the most likely at this point.
Yeah, I think that's a little high, but we'll see. But so he's going to be.
I take that back.
With it.
Even par is the most likely. Jim.
Yeah, I was going to say even par on -1 is probably my best bet. But so he's flirting with it right now. He's going to have to have a good day in the morning. Those guys that play in the afternoon today, they should have similar advantage to the guys that played in the morning today. However, there's supposed to be rain tomorrow, which could kind of throw a wrench into everything. So Uncle Big Nick and I have been talking about how the guys that played this morning had a major advantage over everyone else in the field, and it's kind of played out that way. And Rory played in a good spot, and tomorrow I don't think the scores are going to be what we saw today. I think they're going to be a little worse than we saw today.
We shall see. On the other end of the leaderboard, by the way, the one name we did not talk about there would be Scotty Scheffler, who did not have an early tee time, still played very well. And we all know from the Masters, you got to look out for Scotty because he's not going to go away. So that's another guy to keep an eye out for.
Still no value though, but
yeah. No, I wouldn't bet him now, but something worth keeping an eye on. Looking at the other end though, guys, and Devin, Spencer, maybe y'all as more casual golf fans tuned into this more. Tiger, I'm not just talking about this tournament because he's not going to make the cut. He shot at 70, 86 over par. Is Tiger done? Like done?
I mean, I hate to say he's done because if someone's that great, you hate to bury him. But he's at that age though, to where when he shoots bad, that question's gonna come up. So I mean, he's definitely done for this tournament. But as far as is he done for good, I think he'll definitely try to play next year, and hopefully be a little healthier and try to maybe win one more. But I do think he's done though as far as winning another major. I just think he's just too old and too injured.
Not going to play enough, Zach. He's just
I don't know that it's age as much as it's the injuries. It's
a combination of injuries, and I know we want to hear from Devin about this, but it's not just injuries. He's not going to play enough to ever get himself, I don't think, into a position where he can win again. You look at Phil Mickelson when he won the PGA, he was playing every week at 50 years old. I mean, Tiger is probably the only person on the planet who could come back from the devastating the injuries he sustained in the car crash and come back and even be competitive at all in a major like this. But as far as winning, I mean, Uncle Big Nick hopes I'm wrong because we have a big old bet on this, but not only do I never think he's going to win again, I don't think he's ever going to be in a top 10 again.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's going to have to. His body is going to have to recover, Devin. And curious to hear your take on it too, because the guy, for an entire generation of golf fans, is Superman, but he doesn't. He just looks like he's found a batch of kryptonite.
Yeah, you look at the field of golfers. They're a lot better and a lot more competitive compared to when he first started. Once he was at the top, he dominated for so long. It was almost unprecedented. But I mean, it's not even just the age. I think just the competitive nature. Every event that he plays in. I mean, there's 7-8 guys that can win it. And that's not to count the next 10 to 15 that are going to be competitive. And some, there's always 1 or 2 surprises every tournament that, kind of comes out of nowhere. So I think for Tiger, I think there's a chance that he makes it to the final day in a competitive, kind of field. But the problem is the consistency from day to day. If you, and Jim, you mentioned this, if you're not constantly playing in every one of these tournaments, you can't really get into a rhythm. And it feels like he plays one, takes a couple off, plays one, takes a couple off. So I think for him, especially at his age, he obviously has to be careful about which ones he's playing. But at this stage of his career, I think we may get one top 10 finish out in the finish out his career, but I think for the majority, I think his days winning a major are over.
And Zach, let's be honest. I mean, the only reason why he's playing right now is because it's St. Andrews. I think if it wasn't at St. Andrews, he wouldn't even be playing this week. I think he would have taken the rest of the year off. So, kudos to him for going out there. I will say though, I saw him doing things he hadn't been doing since he came back, and that was like squatting to look at putts and getting down. So, I mean, maybe his score doesn't reflect it, but he looked better today than I've seen him look since he's come back, I think.
Okay. And we'll see how he looks playing, or well, if you stay up real late, you'll see how he looks playing early tomorrow, because it starts. I mean, that's the crazy thing about it. The last group I think is on 17 right now. By the time they're done in 20 minutes or so, the tournament starts back up again in like 8 hours. So there's not a whole lot of a break.
It's really screwed up my sleep schedule. As you know, my power went out last night. I was trying to fall. I literally like dozed off at about 5 minutes to 2, and the lights came back on. I'm wide awake. Did a little work that I had to do, and then I turned the golf on, and that was a big mistake because then I couldn't go back to sleep. And so I was on and off sleep. I'd sleep for 30 minutes, wake up, what's going on, who's doing what, and it was a mess. So hopefully I'll get to sleep tonight.
Nick says he's been up since 1 a.m. So yeah. I've heard people go to Vegas where it starts at 10:30 and you just stay up as late as you can. I mean, but it's now what 2:15 in Vegas, so you're still up. They're still playing. I don't know if you could make that far, but you basically have to be nocturnal.
Could you imagine being in Vegas doing the shots game every time Tiger bogeys? You got to take a shot at 1 a.m.
Definitely
2
not
a.m.
be awake now. Then, yeah.
Knocked out.
All right, so Cam Young in the lead at the British Open. The first round almost complete. We have Rory McIlroy in second place. He's your favorite at plus 330. You're watching At the Book on bet.nola.com. Zach Ewing along with Devin Jackson, Jim Derry, and Spencer the Guru. Going to spend most of the rest of the show here on football. We have started our football previews over at bet.nola.com. In the morning, every Tuesday through Friday for the next 8 weeks, you're going to get a win total preview and video explainer with a covers.com expert from Jim. We started that on Tuesday with the Bills. We're making our way through the AFC East. And then in the afternoon, you will get a fantasy preview from Spencer on the same team. So what have we done so far? We've done Bills, Dolphins,
Dolphins, and Patriots were today.
And Patriots. Yeah. And
Jets
Jets are tomorrow.
New York
and
football Jets.
That will finish up the AFC East, and then on the subsequent Monday, so Monday's 4:00 Bayou Bets show, we will talk AFC East odds, and we'll kind of go back through those teams and we'll recap that division. Then we'll start again with the NFC East next week, Tuesday through Friday, and do the same thing, leading all the way up to the season. So this is it, guys. It's football season now. Even if it's not official, a lot of rookies report to training camp next week, so it is right around the corner. And, I just love to get some initial thoughts on you guys. Let's go to the steamy upstairs apartment down there in uptown New Orleans first. Spencer, give us something to look for as training camp begins NFL-wise that you're really looking forward to seeing or interests you.
All right, yeah, something that's pretty interesting to me is the Chiefs wide receiver battle, because it just did the Dolphins preview. They've now got Tyreek Hill. And so it got me thinking, who's going to emerge in Kansas City, because they brought in Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdes-Scantling in free agency, and they also drafted Sky Moore. So with all of those guys, it'll be interesting to see which one will be able to be the prominent target. I mean, I would think they'll all see some targets. There's not going to be another Tyreek Hill type target hog, because they've also still got Mecole Hardman. But Juju's looking pretty promising from what I've heard, and an MVS as well as far as being the field stretcher. So they'll probably both do pretty well. Probably be tough for Sky Moore to get on the field a whole lot. But I mean, if he gets the connection with Mahomes, then you never know. So it'll be interesting to see which one Mahomes really takes a liking to here in camp in the preseason.
Devin, how about you? What is your sort of first thing to look out for in the preseason here?
Well, I want to figure out how real the Miami Dolphins are. They obviously have made, a number of moves in the offseason. And, Tyreek Hill has been going on every single podcast defending Tua Tagovailoa in terms of, is he the quarterback of the future? How is he going to play this year with Tyreek Hill? All types of things. So it's been a firestorm for the Dolphins. I'm very interested to see, one, can they come together offensively, because that's been their biggest issue. Their defense is solid, but their offense has been a question mark. And two, just how good are they going to be? And with the reports going to be coming out of training camp about Tua and how he's performing, because I think that's, to me, that's one of the bigger storylines. Obviously, the Bills, I think, are the class of the AFC East. That next team between the Dolphins and Patriots, I think, is going to be pretty interesting, because they could be one of the teams fighting for that 7th playoff spot towards the end of the year.
You see Dolphins 21 to win the AFC, so pretty long odds on them if you're interested. Jim, how about you? As you start your research, what's caught your eye?
Well, one thing about the AFC East, which is what I've spent the entire week on, is I'm about to shift towards the NFC East here in just a little bit. But the AFC East schedule, their schedules are much tougher than they were last year. That includes all 4 teams, the teams they have to play. They got to play the NFC North in their interconference battles, and they have to play the AFC North as well. So a really tough. And if you look at, we talk about the Dolphins, and one thing we discussed with Adam in our preview, the Dolphins are in a world of hurt because of their schedule setup. They've got 2 ridiculous stretches, both at the beginning of the season, at the end, and towards the end of the season, where I just don't know that they're going to be able to make it through. They've got a patch in the middle that they're going to have to almost run the table to get themselves in the playoffs. So, their over and under win total is at 8.5 for a reason. The Patriots as well, and they've kind of going to run a gauntlet. So, I mean, if you're looking for value underplays, you might find some in the AFC East. Although the Bills, I mean, they're so good, I don't know if that I would touch that. And I think the Patriots are ready to take the next step. So, we'll get to the Jets tomorrow, so I don't want to, jump the gun there. But to me, the Dolphins are a value play on their under, and the Patriots maybe a value play on the over at 8.5, because I think Mac Jones is going to be ready to take the next step. I love their running game. Their defense is always solid. So it's going to be a battle, and they don't play Buffalo until week 12, I think, 11 or 12. And then they play them in 11 or 12, and then they play them at the end of the season. So that's going to be an interesting race all year long, because the Patriots will have a chance to take a lead in the division and give Buffalo a run for their money, while I don't think Miami's going to have a chance, because it's just brutal what they've got to go through. So, but the last thing is there's a rumor, tomorrow we're doing the Jets tomorrow. The rumor is Spencer is going to make an upset pick that Zach Wilson is going to be worth a first-round pick. I can't wait to see this, if this is true or not.
Well, let's just say that rumor is going to be they're going to be disappointed.
Oh, man, that's a shame.
Yeah.
Zach Wilson and rumors, man. There's so many jokes I could make right now.
Oh, boy.
There's so many jokes.
Yeah, he might be a first round pick as far as scoring.
Breece Hall, maybe,
but he's not going to be a first round pick with fantasy.
Spencer took the low hanging fruit right there. Let's. I
like Breece Hall. Do like Breece Hall. I think he's going to break out. Yep, that little teaser for y'all there. Yep.
I don't want to give away too much. That was quite a big preview for Monday's show, when we will dig into the AFC East more. But look, it's an exciting time of year. I mean, this is where news reports are going to come out every single day about this guy looks great. This is more of a spring training thing, but you hear it in training camp too, that so-and-so is in the best shape of his life. So-and-so doesn't look good. Jamar Chase can't catch the ball. Remember that ridiculousness from last year? Yeah. And it's your job as a bettor to decide what's real and what is kind of a smokescreen or something that you shouldn't pay attention to. And so that's going to be real interesting. But I want to look at these odds, Super Bowl odds, off the bat with these a few times throughout the offseason. This is where they've settled right now. The Bills and Bucks are the favorites. I said this last week. I see more teams on this list that I'm not touching than teams that I see a tremendous amount of value in.
Is the reason why you put the Ravens in? Are they shaded out for a reason, or is that just an accident?
Nah, that was just an accident. It was
Okay.
purposeful.
I thought you were trying. Somebody was trying to tell me something there. I didn't know.
I do like the Ravens if I had to pick a team, although I think I got them at 25-1, so it's come down.
Well, I mean, I've said this before. As far as this list goes for me, I think the best value in this list, and people are going to just go whatever because there's so many haters of this team. You either love them or you hate them. I think the Cowboys are a big bargain at 1,800. I really do. I think they could very well end up being the best team in the NFC because their division is so bad. I haven't gone through. Now, I'm about to dive into the NFC, so I'll crunch their schedule number probably later today. But I just got to think Dallas is in a great position to where, I mean, they could easily go 6-0 in the division. I know Philadelphia is going to be semi-tough. They'll be better. But, to me, that's the biggest value in this board. And the Eagles, and you look at the NFC conference numbers, again, about to dive in here, but I think they're going to be overrated at 1,300. Seems kind of high for me, NFC numbers. I like the 49ers, but not at 750. I think they're going to take a step forward. And other than that, I mean, really the Saints are going to be one of the better bargains.
Yes, the Saints are an interesting team. I mean, they've drawn a lot of attention from the bettors. We've talked about this. It really comes down to what you think the Sean Payton impact was. Was Sean Payton responsible for getting them 2 or 3 additional wins last year, that Dennis Allen will not be able to do this year? And if that's the case, then I could see why you would be bearish on the Saints. But otherwise, you look at a team that went 9-8 last year with the number of injuries, the number of COVID problems they had, and this year a schedule that's somewhat similar. I mean, both were tough, and their win total's 8. It was 7.5. But you got to assume they're going to be healthier this year, Spencer.
Yeah, definitely. I actually just went through the Saints schedule game by game with my cousin yesterday. We've been keeping up with the Saints our whole life, and we kind of came up with our projection at 10-7. And it's a tough schedule. There's no denying it. It's a tough schedule. I mean, if the schedule was a little easier, probably would have said 11-6. But I mean, it's a lot of tough opponents there. But there's that middle stretch. If they could get through that middle stretch and not have it be a total disaster, then I definitely think it's going to be a winning season, hopefully a double-digit win season, because they've got the talent to do so. Just let's say health is going to be the key. You have to stay healthy, because if they have the amount of injuries like last year, it's just they're not going to be able to pull that off 2 years in a row. This year they're going to have to stay a lot healthier to have another winning season and hopefully a playoff berth.
No, I mean, I think that's true, but I also think it would be pretty ridiculous if a team had that number of injuries 2 years in a row. I mean, that was unprecedented. I don't see
that happening again.
So it would be a stroke of extreme misfortune. Let's switch gears for a minute and go to college football. And I'm going to let Devin lead off here because he is our resident college football expert. You CFP championship odds, because college football is coming up faster than the NFL, by the way. We're only about 50 days away from LSU's opener against Florida State. You see the Tigers down there at 50-1. That was an accident, Devin, but you almost shaded the right row in every side. We got LSU shaded here, so that's good. They're 50-1. Can LSU win a national championship? I think that's probably asking too much in Brian Kelly's first year with what they have coming back compared to everybody else. But is this an Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia year and nobody else has a chance, Devin? Or do you see one of the longer shots on this list being there at the end?
I kind of like Texas A&M at 25-1. I've been thinking about this while I was doing the slides, trying to figure out where's the value at. To me, it doesn't start until you get to Texas A&M. Clemson, to me, still has a lot of question marks around their quarterback position. I think they'll be a good team still, and they're always near the top. But are they going to be good enough? To me, Texas A&M is one of the few teams in the country that matches Georgia and Ohio State and Alabama talent for talent at each position. I mean, they had the number one recruiting class or top five for a couple years. They beat Alabama last year, so they have shown they can beat Alabama and some of the premier teams, but can they be consistent throughout the year? I think that's the biggest issue. But to me, Texas A&M is a clear value. I think USC is way overvalued. I understand you have Lincoln Riley, you have Caleb Williams from Oklahoma, Jordan Addison. They have a lot of talent, but I don't know if they're there yet in terms of defensively. So to me, I think Texas A&M is the biggest value on this board right now because they're able to match the top teams talent for talent. But in terms of actually winning the big games, I mean, Jimbo finally kind of got over that hurdle beating Alabama last year, but then they lost to LSU in the season finale. So to me, I would say they're the biggest value outside the top three, but to me, I still think, it's probably going to be Alabama or Georgia in that, championship game, depending on who wins the SEC title game.
Yeah, I don't know. And we'll look at the SEC odd. Jim, it's so hard to pick against Alabama and Georgia. Every year you think, oh, this is going to be the year somebody else takes them down. I don't see it.
It's funny because I'm with Devin, but we hadn't talked about this at all. Texas A&M jumped out at me like big time, and I find it interesting that they're 2,500 to win the national championship, but yet their SEC title odds aren't that much different at 1,600. Find that interesting. LSU, 5,000 to win the national championship, 4,000 to win the SEC. Very interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a guy who. Last year was the first time that I bet a college football future before like November, and I saw Georgia the first three games, and I said to myself that this, to me, it was a no-brainer that team was going to win the national championship. And I think that for the most part, you can see a team play a few games, their odds don't change all that much, and you can get a sense for what you're looking at. And so with college football futures, I'd rather watch a few games first and then maybe jump on the train, because it seems like every year it's easy to pick out that team that has the best chance. You're not always going to be right. Weird things happen, but if you're pressed to play something now, though, I'm kind of with you. It's hard to pick against Alabama, Georgia, and the usual suspects in Ohio State. I mean, they're all going to be around, and the committee's going to do whatever they can to get them in there. So they're going to have to really screw up not to get in there.
Yeah, I'll offer one more team that I would take a look at in these odds, and I would say, no, it's SEC, but I would say Utah as well. Someone to watch at 40-1. They have a lot of talent returning. They're the quarterback Cam Rising. Their star corner, a couple tight ends that I think can be drafted into the NFL. So they have a lot returning on that team as well. And obviously, all eyes are going to be on USC and Oregon. But I do think Utah is a nice, put a couple bucks down here early, especially if they go on a roll and, finish the season undefeated. I think right now is the time. And they have that first game against Florida as well. So they were able to go into Florida and handle them. I think their odds would significantly shift down as well.
Zach, I have a question for Devin to get his opinion on something. If you're looking for some kind of value right now, and you look at this board, if you could put that board back up, I think that I'd like to get your opinion on, all right, if you think that Ohio State can be beat, is there value on a Michigan, a Wisconsin, a Michigan State, or a Penn State? If one of those is able to make a run, and we see it every year, that they are able, one of those teams is going to make a run most likely, you might be getting some good value early, in preseason if you take one or two of those teams and maybe get something out of it.
Yeah, I would say Michigan or Penn State would be my picks in terms of someone that can make a run, because they're the two teams that are right there in recruiting with Ohio State. Ohio State they have the best receivers coach, best receivers typically in college football. Obviously have one of the best quarterbacks as well, but defensively is still their big question mark. So to me, I would say Penn State or Michigan are two teams to keep an eye out on. Maybe you may lean Penn State because it's 75-1 right now, and Michigan's at 51, which probably will go down a little bit if they start off the season hot. But I think Penn State or Michigan would be the two teams to watch that could really give Ohio State a run, especially when you get towards later in the season and those teams are starting to go on a little bit of a run. It will be almost conducive to bet probably beforehand because those game odds are going to be tricky.
Two things I'll say is Jim is right in that sometimes in college you can afford to wait a couple of weeks, see what teams have. The one time you can't really do that is if a team, sometimes that you have these openers that can shape a team's whole season. Georgia, Clemson last year. And Evan, you mentioned Utah. Utah opens with Florida. I believe it's in Gainesville. And so if Utah wins that game on the road, those odds are going way down. So if you like them, that's an example of a team you need to bet preseason, because if they do beat Florida and they look good doing it, it's going to get them on a lot more people's radars, and you're going to see a path to a Pac-12 title a lot easier.
And either one of those Big Ten teams that we talked about, if they start, I mean, I haven't looked at Michigan or Penn State's schedule, but I mean, I'm assuming they play somebody. I mean, Devin, I'm sure you know, but if they play somebody really good the first few weeks, they win the game, they start at 3-0, their odds are dropping big.
Yeah, Penn State
they really don't
Auburn.
Actually. Yeah.
Yeah, Penn State plays Auburn in week 3, so that will be a big game for both teams, for future odds because that it's at Auburn, I think, this year, and they played at Penn State last year. But with both teams, not really picked to win their respective conference. I mean, they're the two teams that typically could knock off a Ohio State or Alabama because they have the talent to do so.
I'm sorry to interrupt, guys. I was talking about Michigan. They do not actually have their non-conference games are Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn. So that's pretty nasty. And they will almost certainly be 3-0. And then they open the Big Ten play with Maryland. And so, again, even though they're not playing anybody, if a team with the name brand of Michigan that was in the playoff last year, they start out 4-0 with 4 28-point blowouts, those odds will trickle down simply because they're undefeated. And people say, oh, hey, Michigan could make a run. I didn't realize they were 4-0. And so there is some of that. And by the way, another team with possible narrative is LSU. LSU opens at the Dome with Florida State. They're 3.5-point favorites on the early line. If LSU wins that game, then they play Southern, which will be an emotional game and a big game for the Baton Rouge community, but I don't think it's a game anyone thinks LSU will lose. Then they play Mississippi State at home, a revenge game that they get at home. Then they have New Mexico. All of a sudden, that team, they're 4-0 going to Auburn October 1st. They're going to start to get a little bit of that momentum of people saying, hey, it's LSU. They won a national championship just 3 years ago. Maybe they're going to do it again. And they haven't, at that point, Florida State's the best team they've played. We don't know how good Florida State is. I could see that happening, though.
The underachievers, the Florida State Seminoles. Seem like they're always the underachievers. No one's ever accused Jim Harbaugh of just doing whatever he can to just get wins, right? I mean, Devin's right. I mean, I think Michigan is probably the best value of the bunch, but I don't know that I can hold my nose enough to put money on Michigan.
I'll tell you what, another team that I didn't get to list, Miami at 75-1. I know, they're just like Florida State underachievers, but they've really recruited pretty well under Mario Cristobal, the former Oregon coach, and I expect them to be a lot better this year. I don't think they're going to win a championship, but certainly in a weaker ACC outside of Clemson, I think Miami could make things interesting at the very least.
Zach, we've talked we've talked 10 minutes about college football, and Devin has yet to bring up a no-name school like a Western Michigan or Southern Illinois or
who's going to win the MAC?
Yeah,
who's going to win the MAC? I'll take my money on Central Michigan.
I knew he was going to say that.
I'm all over him.
Who's going to win the Sun Belt? Who's going to win the Sun Belt?
This is going to disappoint you, Spencer, but I'm going to go Appalachian State.
All right. Yeah, my Raging Cajuns probably won't now that we lost Billy Napier. But speaking of Billy Napier, I thought there might be some value on Florida because I've heard good things about their recruiting.
Oh, now he's a Gators fan, boys and girls.
Yeah, they're 75-1, I think, to win the national championship, and then we can pull up the SEC. Yeah, 50-1. So, I mean, I
Isn't
won't
that
say it's
amazing?
impossible.
50-1 to win your conference and 75-1 to win the national title.
Look, I won't say it's impossible because Anthony Richardson is an amazing talent at quarterback, but he's had such limited experience. I don't know, man. Georgia is still a juggernaut. That would be the only blemish I could see immediately for them. And then they have that tough game against Utah. So if they win against Utah, I mean, maybe you put a couple of dollars down on Florida to win the SEC East, but I don't know about the entire SEC. I think they're still a year or two away from being seriously competitive.
Although, if you get them at 50-1 to win the SEC and they win the East, you're setting up an opportunity to hedge in the championship game, whether it's Alabama or LSU or Ole Miss or whoever they're playing. You would certainly have a lot of value on your side at that point. By the way, Uncle Big Nick says he can't wait for MACtion on Tuesday nights. The commissioner of the MAC was at this sports betting conference today, and MACtion was brought up and it as a value to the gambling community because it's the only thing going on those nights. Once the World Series ends, and the NBA has started, but it's still very early season. Like the only football you got is MACtion on Tuesday and Wednesday nights. And if you're itching to bet on something, man, MACtion is perfect.
Always bet the over.
Yeah, I'll tell you, if I keep doing daily best bets on Tuesdays, I'll have to start keeping up with that MACtion. Because, that'll be all there is to pick from.
I just can't wait for the Bayou Bet Show with Mattress Mac now that you guys are buddies.
I made contact with Mattress Mac yesterday, got a number for him. So we're going to try to get him on the show to talk about his big bets on the Astros to win the World Series. He stands to win $41 million if the Astros win the World Series. But it's all money to cover his losses if he has to give away free furniture at his mattress stores. It's all like insurance for promos. It's very interesting.
Cheaper than insurance.
It probably is, and he's very forthright about it, about why he does it and how he does it. And he was actually at the conference yesterday, calling out into the crowd, saying, "If anybody's willing to give me 6-1 on the Astros, I want to put down a couple million more." Because what's happened is, like Caesars, for instance, has so much liability with Mattress Mac already betting $4 million on him at 10-1. They don't want anymore. It's like, hey, that's enough liability for us. And so, very interesting and a good segue into baseball. We
could probably scrape up a couple million. I mean, just us four, we could make some money here.
You could scrape up. What about your life? Do I not know that you could scrape up a couple million?
Oh, it's us four. I mean, we got. I mean, Spencer's a bachelor. I mean, he's probably got some money on the side. All that money.
Yeah. I'll chip in. I'll chip in $1 million. Y'all cover the rest. Yeah. I got
Jim's
that.
going to play some World Series of Poker's events down at Harrah's to make up that money for us.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. Get real
Uncle Big Nick says he's in, so there we go.
Yeah, well, all the money he's won on golf. He's got the money.
Yeah, Uncle Big Nick can just cover us. All his DFS wins.
His name's not Uncle Big Nick for no reason. Before we get to baseball, I did want to point out Ronald McGee's comment. We showed it a little bit earlier, but just going back to our Saints conversation. And I think this is the path to success. The O-line has to stay healthy because they're not nearly as deep as they have been. And obviously Jameis has to stay healthy. But that offense could be improved, and we know the defense is good. So that is the path to success there.
There's no question. I mean, you keep Jameis healthy, and with the weapons he's got, this team's going to be way better. And I get the whole Sean Payton thing, but I think it's going to make a difference. I mean, only a fool would say that Sean Payton not being there is not going to make a difference. But we also know that teams, for some reason, quite often, especially when they're coming from being successful, teams quite often play very well for a first-year coach. It happened for Sean Payton when he got here, and they were coming off an awful season. So in 2006, his first year, they went to the NFC Championship game out of the blue. And so, for whatever reason, quite often teams play well for a first-year coach, and this team has plenty of talent, there's plenty of bargain, but that bargain is those values on the Saints are slowly diminishing. If you haven't jumped on the train, your time's running out. I mean, it really is. I mean, we've seen how much the odds have changed to where now I don't know how big of a value you're getting now. We all talked about it a couple months ago. I mean, I got 7.5. I got, I think I got 2,500 to win the conference and 5,000 for Super Bowl and 450 to win the division. Those numbers aren't around anymore, and they're only going to get worse. So, I mean, we talked about it Saints probably gonna be 8.5. The over/under win total is probably gonna be 8.5 by the time we do the preview. I would bet.
Yeah, the only way it changed was if Kamara gets suspended before the season, that could maybe shift it a little bit. But yeah, we don't know when that's gonna happen.
Well, his hearing, the hearing's not even scheduled to come out until August. I think August the 2nd or 3rd or 4th, somewhere around. Sorry for a little munchkin running behind me. She doesn't follow directions very well. But they could push that hearing back again. I have a strong suspicion that if a decision is made on Kamara and a potential suspension, it's not going to happen until after the season starts. At this point.
Yeah, and it depends too. If he only gets, let's say they let him off easier than people are thinking, and he only gets 3 games or something.
Oh no.
To a certain extent. Well, listen, the rumor is now Deshaun Watson's only getting 6 to 8 games. If you're giving Deshaun Watson 6 to 8, does Kamara get more than that, or does he? I don't.
Film of him kicking.
Yeah, the film is a game changer. That's sure.
Calvin Ridley got a year for gambling, so I mean, they really have no precedent on what they give people anymore. In terms of
I'd be shocked. It'd be shocked if it's not at least 6 games, but there is a realistic chance it doesn't happen this year. I mean, there's a realistic chance that lawyers are able to push this back into the offseason, and then the NFL doesn't have to make a decision because they're not going to make a decision until this thing is settled. I don't think.
No, I think it's still very much up in the air. You're watching At the Book on bet.nola.com. We're brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook, our official odds partner, and we ask you that if you're not already signed up, you can sign up for the Sportsbook through our promo code. Go to NOLA.com/Caesars for that. Get a $1,500 risk-free first bet. Go to NOLA.com/Caesars today. Guys, I want to wrap up the show with a little baseball talk. Baseball is just one weekend away now from its All-Star break. So, in a lot of ways, the narrative has changed a little bit. At the top, it's the same as we look at these World Series odds. The Yankees and the Dodgers are still your favorites. The Astros are right there, and the Mets are the 4th team. But you've got some teams that are really, really hot. And one of them is the Braves. The Braves they're like 31-9 in their last 40 games or something. And so the defending champs have gone up to less than 10-1. And then
where are the Orioles in this list?
Well, that's what I was going to say. The others are not on this list yet. And that's the Orioles and the Mariners, who have each won 10 straight games and have gotten themselves from basically looking like they were going to be sellers at the trade deadline to now being right in the thick of the wild card race. So you may have missed the boat if you were going to bet on one of those teams because you could have gotten the odds astronomically high. And Caesars, I want to say, took a $1,000 bet on the Orioles at, what was it, 500 to 1 or something? Yeah. So astronomical odds. You've missed those. But is there another team out there that maybe is on the verge of a big run? And maybe they're on this board, maybe they're not. But Spencer, how about, do you see anybody who their odds may be as good as they get right now?
Let's see here. Maybe Tampa Bay at 35-1 because they seem like they're kind of, they can be a little streaky. They're one of those teams that they don't look real great on paper, but they've got good pitching and they've got the ability to make a run. They've done it before. And they've been kind of cold lately, as well as the Blue Jays. So if you're going to try to get some values, probably the Blue Jays and the Rays right now because they haven't been playing too well. So if you're going to bet on this, it'd probably be a good time.
And Zach,
I love that as well.
We talked about the other day. We talked about how picking teams from the AL East, not named the Yankees, could give you a good value because you're probably going to get 2 of those teams not named the Yankees in the playoffs. There could be 3 AL East teams in the playoffs. I mean, I don't know that the Orioles can keep playing like they've been playing. And I agree with Spencer. I think the Rays are a wonderful value right there. They're certainly a better value than the White Sox, in my opinion, at 35-1 and the same odds. So I think Tampa Bay could be a strong possibility to play right now.
And I like the Blue Jays as well. 16-1 is about as good as you're going to get on that team. That team has a tremendous amount of talent. I think they started the year closer to 10-1. And they could turn it on at any minute. And if they do, that number is going to shoot right back down to 10-1. So if you think Toronto has a run in it, 16-1 is about as good as you'll get on them. Um, I think that's going to do it for us today on At the Book. I want to get some final thoughts before we go start a football season, British Open, baseball season. It's all coming together for us here in the summertime. So, Devin Jackson, your final thought on this Thursday.
Yeah, right before the show started, Otani from the Angels, he retook the lead AL MVP odds. I know we talked about it, I think, last week on the show between him and Aaron Judge. So it looks like that battle is going to go pretty much down to the wire throughout the season. Judge having a little bit of a slump. Otani's not only lowering his AL MVP odds, but Cy Young award odds as well. So he's trying to outdo himself to what he did last year. So we'll see if he repeats or not. But that's one of the more interesting futures kind of races that to watch heading to the second half of the season, because I think that one's going to go all the way down to the last game possibly.
All right, Spencer, what are you thinking on this fine Thursday?
All right, yeah. So we have another NASCAR race Sunday, and it had a crazy odd shift that just occurred. Working on my Fast Five column, which will be up tomorrow morning. Kevin Harvick was going to be one of my picks at 25-1. Felt like he was a good value. It's been a while since he's won, but he's come close here the past few weeks, especially at short tracks. He's run pretty well at short tracks this year, but there must be somebody that's feeling strongly that he's going to reach victory lane, because the odds went from 25-1 down to 15-1. So now I don't know if I want to have him, because it's not as much of a value, but somebody must be seeing that he's got a good shot. Because that was I've never seen a NASCAR odds shift like that much for one driver. That was pretty crazy.
No, that is the sign of a big bet or several big bets coming in on Kevin Harvick. So that is very interesting. Final thoughts from you, Jim Derry.
Just a recurring theme that I've had in these early videos for the AFC East that we're doing. NFC East begins on Tuesday with Dallas, and if you want to bet futures, especially on win totals, you got to go through schedules. And there's a lot of times, and Devin brought up Miami earlier, and Miami is a perfect example. If you just look at what Miami did in the offseason, and the Jets for that matter, which we'll get to tomorrow. But if you just say this team is way better than they were last year, or they made the right moves, they're going in the right direction, and you see a win total that is right on par or less than it was last year, and you automatically think, oh, well, that team's definitely going to win more than 8.5 games. Not so fast. Make sure you go through and look through their schedule and potential downfalls, because Miami's one of those teams that before I started really diving into the previews, I'm like, oh, well, that's definitely going to be an over. And then you start going through their schedule like, well, they could start out 0-4. They could lose their last 5 games of the season. So just a warning to potential bettors on teams that you're looking for value. Make sure Adam Chernoff is, he's phenomenal. I mean, this guy has lent so much to what we're doing here at Covers.com, and he's coming on to give his thoughts on each one. And we've been pretty close so far, but and he says the same thing. I mean, you got to go through the schedule with a fine-tooth comb. Don't just react because you think a team is better and go put money on them because, oh, that team's got to be better, whatever. You got to dive through their schedule, not just their roster.
And I mean, I think that brings up my final thought, and that is that Jim Derry looks like Papa Smurf. I'm just kidding. That's actually not my final thought. My final thought is that if you are looking to get ready as a sports bettor for football season, you've got to follow our stuff. I mean, we've had 2 college football conference previews out this week, 3 team by team sports betting previews and fantasy previews for the NFL, and a 4th one coming tomorrow in the Jets. And so this is the kind of information like, look, if you're going to bet and you go through it, like Jim said, you go through the schedule. I still like the under. I still like the over. I still like the odds to make the playoffs, whatever it might be. Jumping on it now is when you get value. And the same thing goes for the look-ahead lines. If you like a week 1 NFL line, if you don't bet it now, that thing will move by Friday of game week. And that's not necessarily the end of the world, but really the only way to get ahead in the NFL is to beat the line movement. And that goes for futures, that goes for look at headlines, it goes for win totals, it goes for all of that. If you don't beat that line movement, like we talked about the Saints, if you got over 7.5, like we said on this show a couple of months ago, you beat the line movement. Now it's 8, and you're paying minus 150 vig on the 8, on the over 8. And as Jim said, it may soon go to 8.5, or certainly by the time the season starts. And so you missed the boat on it. You missed that line movement. There's no value, and you're going to be sweating if the Saints are 8-8 going into the final week of the season, and we'll have cashed our ticket already because we beat the line movement.
Zach, the people who make money in this business already have dozens of bets on games throughout the season already dozens. The people who make money and know what they're doing, and I hear from people all the time, there's not people that do this for a living. There are not only people that do this for a living, there are people that are very wealthy doing this for a living and know what the hell they're talking about. There aren't a lot of them, but there are people who make a lot of money doing this for a living, and they already have dozens of bets on games all the way through the end of the season.
And so it requires a bankroll, yes. I mean, even if you're only betting $10 on a game, if you want to bet dozens of bets, you're going to have a few $100s that you can let sit in your account. Realize not everybody has that, and that's understandable. But if you do want to get in on the game, NOLA.com/Caesars, this is the smart way to do it. You get those things in now, and then you see the value roll in. And sometimes, especially on the look-ahead lines, the line can move so much that you can actually hit a middle of 2 or 3 points and really have an opportunity to win some money and guarantee that you don't lose any when game week comes. So we'll continue to talk about that. We'll be back with you at 4 p.m. on Monday for Bayou Bets, and we are with you every day on bet.nola.com. All the best action from the odds, some of our thoughts, some of our picks, but mostly just the storylines that the odds tell. That's what we're here for, and we want to hear from you, and would love it if you participate with our stuff. So 4 p.m. Monday, we'll be back with Bayou Bets. Until then, for Spencer the Guru, our producer, Devin Jackson, and Jim Derry, this has been At the Book. Have a good day, everybody.